Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die, where my goal is to give you evidence that although our bodies will disappear, we survive physical death. When we aren't afraid of death, we are less afraid of life. From these episodes, my goal is for all of us to take more risks in life, go after our dreams, have great relationships, and maybe even some joy in the process. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international bestseller, We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. Today, I'm really excited to introduce you to Mark Ireland. I met Mark at a conference earlier this year and truly was impressed how genuine he is. Mark is the son of the world-renowned psychic to the stars, Richard Ireland, and he, as a son, has led a much more conventional life, being an advertising executive. However, the unexpected death of Mark's son Brandon led him into the world of mediums and psychics, trying to find answers about life after death. His pain caused him to dig back into his family roots, and he has concluded that physical death is not the end. Mark is passionate about helping people understand this and also speaks of the importance of the life we are living right now. Mark Ireland is the author of two great books, Soul Shift, Finding Where the Dead Go, and Messages from the Afterlife, a bereaved father's journey in the world of spirit visitations, psychic mediums, and synchronicity. Mark has also released a previously unpublished book his father had written titled Your Psychic Potential, A Guide to Psychic Development. It is my privilege to introduce you to my friend Mark Ireland. Hello, Mark.
Hey Sandra, how you doing?
Oh, I am great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Really happy to be here.
Yeah, I was absolutely thrilled when I got to put my eyes on you back in Scottsdale earlier this year, and you were somebody who had sent me a PDF copy of your book, and oh, I was so busy trying to market my book, I hadn't even looked at yours. But after we connected, I think yours was the first book. Soul Shift was the first book that I read, and I was just blown away. And it was like I just wanted to be your friend. I wanted to know more, and you and I have talked about developing a seminar together and doing all kinds of fun things. So if you would, just kind of introduce yourself to our listener and kind of how you got into this world.
Sure, happy to.
Thanks.
Like as you said, I have led a fairly conventional life, as an adult at least. Although growing up, my dad was a psychic and a medium. Although back in those days, he didn't talk about the mediumship that much, except in certain quarters. But you had to present it more as entertainment in different types of venues. Although he was also a minister, he had his own church. It was a very cutting-edge church, I guess you'd call it, more of a metaphysical type of a church where he would demonstrate the mediumship in that environment more. But otherwise, in public venues, which he went into initially to open people's minds to thinking outside the box and considering that maybe we're more than just a body and a brain, and maybe we really are a soul or a spirit. And by just, even if he could get someone to open their mind just a crack, he figured that he did his part to get them thinking.
Yeah.
So I grew up with a unique father like that, and just, as a couple stories that I like to tell as examples. When my parents were first married, my mom, was trying to become a vegetarian. And so she had been successful for a couple of months, and then one day she just had this craving for red meat, and she ran out and got a burger.
Uh-huh.
And, later that evening, my dad comes home for the day, and first words out of his mouth are, "So Shirley, did you enjoy your hamburger today?" Which greatly frustrated her.
Because
And
she couldn't keep any secrets.
right, and I had an older brother. I still have an older brother, but he,
Hmm.
at the time he was a teenager. I was a little kid, but my dad always sniffed out everything he was doing, from having somebody buy him beer before he was of age to drag racing his car. And so he once said to my dad, "How would you like to have a dad like you?" It's kind of ironic. And later on, when I was, I think I was 19 years old, I took a date. It was actually our second date, who's now my wife, Susie, out to see my father. And I wasn't a really good planner back then, and sometimes I would just make a decision on what we're going to do at the last minute, and this
Mm-hmm.
night was such a case. So I said, hey, what do you want to do? She said, I don't care. And I said, well, you want to go see my father? And he's appearing over here. And she said, sure. And so my father's normal psychic demonstration was to tape his eyes shut with 10 strips of Johnson & Johnson medical tape, and then have 3 black blindfolds over that, and then more tape over top of that, covering down below his eyes and everything. He even would cover his nostrils for effect, because he once said somebody accused him of having holes bored between his eyes and his nose so he could see out its nostrils.
Oh my.
So anyhow, he would get all bandaged up and taped up, and then people would write questions, and then they'd be delivered up to him, and then he would pick up the papers and answer the questions. And he would not only get what they wrote on the paper, but they'd give them a lot of details that were far beyond what was written, including names of people, specific things that were really, I mean, he really hit home with this stuff. So I take my date there that night, and we get there late because I'm running late. And my father's already started. He's already blindfolded. He's already giving messages to people. So I encouraged her to write a question on a piece of paper, which she did, and it was sent out. But she didn't really know what to ask, so she asked if her mother would ever get married to the man she was dating, because her mom was single at the time, and she'd been dating this guy for an extended period. He wanted to marry the mom, but the mom wasn't so sure.
Hmm.
So anyhow, Susie sends the question up, and finally my dad gets to it, and he picks up this paper, and he says, Susie Sipe. And she says, here. And he says, well, I think you've asked me a question about your mother and when she's going to get married. I don't know about your mother, my dear, but you have made your choice of men, and he's with you tonight, and you'll be getting married to him. And
Oh,
then I spoke up. I said, Dad, you just were talking about me. I said, Susie's my date. And he says, oh, my gosh, I just married off my own son.
oh, that's funny.
So so growing up with my dad was very cool, and I saw that side of it, the psychic side of him
Mm-hmm.
knowing a lot of things and in detail, and kind of could figure out anything that was going on without any sensory information. But I also saw the mediumship side, more in the church, him giving really detailed messages to people with names, first and last names of people who had passed, and information about them that no one could know, and relaying messages. And it always stuck with me as a little kid how comforting that was, to just realize, wow, there is more. But then growing up, I really didn't strive to be my dad. I was my own person. I think
Yeah.
not many kids strive to be their parent, right?
Well, and then you have
Um,
a superstar father, and I don't know, you hear about
yeah,
people in the entertainment industry that a lot of times the kids try to get away from that, or I don't know.
yeah, like Jerry Lewis and Gary Lewis.
Yes.
That didn't work out as well for Gary, but he did have one hit record with his band
Hmm.
a long time ago. Anyhow, so yeah, those are big shoes to fill. And even though my dad said I was psychic, I really didn't think of myself that way. It didn't come to me naturally. And so I just kind of went down a conventional course. And my parents had divorced too, so it wasn't like, after a certain age, I wasn't around my dad all the time, although
Hmm.
in the summertime I was around him more, which I enjoyed a lot. But, you know, then going to college and then getting married and having kids, going into the business world, I just kind of got absorbed into the standard U.S. way of living,
Yes.
earning a check and doing my own thing. And I think what broke this off for me was in 2004, my youngest son, Brandon, unexpectedly died while hiking a mountain near our home in Arizona. And so it was just earth-shattering. But I did immediately think back to those times as a child, the things I'd seen, and the evidence I'd seen of the afterlife through my
Hmm.
father's abilities. And one of the first people I called was my Uncle Robert, who was still alive. Now, my dad had passed by then, but my Uncle Robert was still alive, and he had very similar abilities. He asked if he could do anything for me, and I just said, well, if you have any way of getting a connection to Brandon or information about Brandon, I'd really appreciate it. It was maybe 3 days later. I can't remember at this point exactly because it's been 10 years. But I got a call in the mortuary. I was making arrangements for the service, and it was my uncle. And and at this time, just so you know, We didn't know Brandon's cause of death. All we knew was that his friends had told us that he had reported having what he felt was a rapid heartbeat, and his limbs felt a little numb. Um, and so my uncle at this point, he said, Mark, I tried to meditate last night, and I couldn't get anything. But this morning I got up and I did my morning meditation. Your dad came to me, and he wanted you to know that he was there for Brandon when Brandon crossed over. Brandon was a little confused initially, but he helped him adjust. He wanted you to know that you're the best parent he ever could have had,
Oh.
which is what you'd want to hear as a parent. But on the heels of that, he said, your dad told me that Brandon's death was caused by a lack of oxygen that caused his heart to fail. So 2 days later or so, I think it was 2 days, I talked to the physician that had done the autopsy on Brandon's body, and she informed me that Brandon's death was caused by a severe asthma attack that caused his oxygen levels to dip and his heart to fail.
Wow.
So I got that from my uncle prior to the autopsy, and to have that piece of verifiable information, along with the greeting like that, was very comforting and helpful.
Sure.
And that really set me out on the course of kind of diving back into the whole world that my dad had been in all those years earlier, and getting engaged for myself and writing 2 books about it. And ultimately, the purpose in doing that was, at first it was a catharsis for me, a healing thing, but more so it became a way for me to help other people heal by sharing my evidence, by sharing my experiences, and leading them to understand that we are more than a brain and a body, as my dad would put it.
Wow. What other things have you uncovered in the life after death world? Because obviously you had your own experience with your uncle, um, but I
Well,
think you were driven to keep searching.
I think in Soul Shift really chronicles my initial search, and then the
Mm-hmm.
second book is more, I guess, a more scholarly attempt at educating people on the field. But the first book, really, that what the journey led me on was to, I had some experiences of my own, and family members had experiences, and then I also met with some top mediums, and I chronicled those readings. One of them was actually conducted in a lab environment at the University of Arizona under controlled conditions, and it was taped for a Discovery Channel excerpt.
Wow.
So people can actually see that clip if they go to my website. There's a clip of it on the media page on my website, which, if you don't mind me telling,
Not at all.
it's markirelandauthor.com.
Mm-hmm.
So Mark with a K, Ireland like the country, author.com. And so that, and then the first reading I had was with medium Linda Williamson from England, and it was very good, and she had a lot of pertinent information and details that gave me confidence. She contacted not only my son, but other loved ones who had passed on. And Linda's most well known for area. Most people in this that are interested in this area know the name John Edward.
Uh-huh.
He's
Yes.
a psychic medium out of, I believe, New York. But John Edward had agreed on a secret code with his mother that was, if one of them died, they would share this code with the other through a different medium. And this is going back to kind of like the idea of the code that Harry Houdini had set up,
Yes.
So using that, John Edward had reached out to 2 mediums prior to Linda Williamson and didn't get the code. But when he talked to Linda, suddenly, early into the reading, she said, your mother's showing me that she's the guiding light in your life. And he said, that's it. The guiding light was the secret code. She was a soap opera fan. That was her favorite show.
Wow.
So that, that was my introduction to Linda. I actually met her in England. She's a very wonderful person. I met Alison Dubois, who had a reading with her before the show Medium hit it big. And this is kind of an interesting story how that actually took place.
Yeah, she hit it real big, and I think I was one of the many addicted to watching that TV show Medium.
Yeah, it started out with the initial episodes were actually based on true stories of things that had happened, but then they varied. Then they went Hollywood on her.
Right.
But
Sure.
it was a fun ride, right?
But based on a real person.
Yeah. It was a real person, and all the family members are real. And Joe Dubois, now I had fears with him just less than a month ago.
So
But
tell us your story.
so the way that I met her for the reading was interesting because it was 3 weeks after Brandon's passing. He He died in January of 2004, and this was February of the same year. I was watching the NBC News affiliate in Phoenix that night, and they were showing a blurb about this research being done at the University of Arizona at that time. And the medium that was in the lab was Alison Dubois, and they showed her doing some of this where she couldn't see the people she was reading for, and they couldn't respond to her, but she was giving them very specific information, tangible things, and then they showed them debriefing with the people afterward, and they would share what those things meant to them, and I was really impressed. And I thought, gosh, I'd really like to have a reading from her, and I'd love to be in that lab someday. Well, the very next day, I get a phone call from a man named Jerry Conser, who lives in Dallas. He was a friend of my father's. He said, Mark, I know what you've been through, and I know someone who might be able to help you. Her name's Alison Dubois, and here's a phone number you can call to try and, get an appointment with her. So I thought, okay, there's the first in a series of synchronicities that took place in my life. And so I called the number, and I did get a reading set up, but it didn't happen until later that year in August. And interesting, when it did finally happen, one of the first things she said to me was very pertinent, because 2 weeks before I met her, a man had contacted me and gave me a manuscript that my dad had written, but which had never been published, called Your Psychic Potential, A Guide to Psychic Development. And I asked him, I said, well, how'd you get this? He said, well, you were out of state, and at the time your dad was close to passing away. He asked if I'd hold on to this for safekeeping. I said, well, why are you giving this to me now? It's been 12 years. And he says, I don't know, I just feel like I'm supposed to. Then it was 2 weeks later, I had the reading with Alison Dubois. One of the first things she said to me was, your father's here, and he's showing me a book. And I believe it's his book, but he's handing it to you, and it's for you to take forward. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Well, I did know what she meant. And now, in 2011, I actually got the book published.
Wow.
And I always wondered, why didn't you publish that before? But my internal gut told me that my dad kind of he felt the world wasn't ready for it. And just before I published it, another medium who's very gifted, Deborah Martin, who lives in Scottsdale, Arizona, she called me one day and she told me that my dad had connected with her and that he wanted to make sure that people understood the purpose of this book and that it was a sacred book, and which, ironically, I'd already written in the foreword that it was a sacred book. And she says, I asked your dad why he had not published the book before now, and he told me that because the world wasn't ready for it yet. Now, ironic that I already thought that, so it kind of shows you how sometimes these things come to us, and we discard them, and we think of those things as our own internal thoughts, and sometimes I think they're dropped in from external sources, so rather interesting.
Rather interesting, definitely.
So, again, my journey was, the series of readings and then other experiences that were more direct. So I think, the most remarkable, there were really two for me. One was a personal experience, which was a vivid dream visit. Can't even call it a dream. It was just an OBE, an out-of-body experience, where this happened over a year after Brandon's passing. One night, I'd actually gone to bed, and I prayed to have this visit, and I prayed to be able to remember it. And during the visit, the two of us were in a white room together, alone, and he was sitting on what was like a countertop, but there was no furniture or anything. It was just a white room with three walls, and the fourth wall, where the wall should have been, was like infinity. So it was like this, I don't know, just this spot for us to meet in the middle of the universe is what it felt like. And he looked just like himself. It was as vivid as waking reality, if not more so.
Right.
It's almost like what people describe as a near-death experience, how vivid that is for them. This was like that for me, I guess. And we had just a very brief chat in that meeting. And I said, Brandon, I missed you so much since you died. And he said, I didn't die. My father died, which may seem like an odd statement, and I really had to mull that over for some time afterward. And about 2 weeks later, his best friend was over saying hi to us. And when he was leaving, all of a sudden, I was telling him the story, and then it just popped into my head what the meaning was. At least the meaning that I felt was conveying to me was that he didn't die because we don't die. It's just a transition. But part of me died inside his father, but it caused a rebirth in me into a new chapter of my life that was more meaningful than anything that I'd done to that point.
That's pretty extraordinary, Mark, because I see it time and time again when we lose a loved one, the part of us does die inside, and a lot of people are walking around already dead, and they can spend 40 more years living physically, but their heart is closed and they're wrapped up in guilt and grief and have died inside. So I get that.
And it was really interesting to see my son talk to me in metaphor like that,
Yeah.
But I think it's just a different environment, and it also probably reflected his growth from the time that he passed, and his way of viewing everything is probably far different on the other side. Then there was another, I'd say probably the most compelling of any of the direct connection stories that we had, because that one was reserved to me, but my wife, 6 months after Brandon had died, we went on a cruise, and we were going to take that cruise to celebrate Brandon's high school graduation. But
Hmm.
since he wasn't physically there to go with us, we took his best friend, Stu, and our other son, Stephen. And Stu and Steve were also friends, so that was a perfect setup. Well, on the day we returned home, Susie was sitting at the foot of our bed and suddenly felt Brandon's presence and then saw him as a shadow figure out of her peripheral vision, and she knew it was him. And this lasted for, I don't know, 20 or 30 seconds. And the very next day, we got a phone call from a musician friend named James Linton. Now, the way we'd met James, it was actually, he was a hiker on the same mountain Brandon was hiking the day that he had passed, and James and his group of friends were following the boys and got there after Brandon had collapsed and tried to help, but they were really too late. So anyhow, fast forward 6 months later, and James was recording some songs in a studio that he had in his place. He was a guitar player and a singer, but he didn't have a bass guitar. And our son Brandon was a bass player, and he asked if he could borrow Brandon's bass, and we said sure. So now it is, the day after Susie's experience, James calls, and he said, Susie, I have something to tell you, but I don't know how to tell you this. And she figured he would say, oh, he dropped the bass or broke it or something like
Right.
that. But he said, well, I was in recording this song, and while I was doing the recording, I felt another presence around me, and then I saw a shadow figure out of my peripheral vision,
Huh.
and then I saw flashes of white light, and I thought I was hallucinating, so I went to get something to eat, something to drink. I came back, it was still there, so then I went and took a shower. Each time he came back, he felt that it was stronger and stronger, and then finally it occurred to him what was going on, and he said, what do you want me to do, Brandon? And when he asked that question, it suddenly was downloaded to him, and he retooled a song he was working on, and he, entitled it The Other Side, and he said it was a gift to us from Brandon. He said, it's the best song I've ever written, but I didn't write it. And it's a gift for you from Brandon.
Wow.
So even if you just were to discard the song part, the mere fact that he had the identical visual contact with Brandon that Susie did one day before and knew nothing about her experience was rather remarkable.
Exactly. And what's the song like? I would assume it's pretty
It's
profound.
actually it's an upbeat rocker with profound lyrics.
Huh.
Um, I really need to post that on my website. I'm trying to think where people can hear it. I know that I've sent out I sent out a newsletter a while back where I had the song connected. But if anyone wants to hear it, they can just write to me. Go to my website on the contact page, and I'll send you a link to it.
And what I can
But
do
I think.
too, Mark, is I have the website WeDon'tDieRadio.com, and after
Mhm.
every episode, I put a handsome picture of you, a little description, your website, and I can put in that as well. And you know what else I want to
Awesome.
put in is that video. Was your dad on? Was it the Steve Allen show that he was on?
Yeah, that's a good representation of what he did, so people
Yeah.
can understand. And there's a link to that on my website too.
Yes, because we can link all of that so people can listen to the song
And
and
just so
see it.
people know too, what they see on that, he only has time in that audience setup to address, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 people. The video captures all of them, I believe.
Yeah, it's
But
remarkable.
in a normal nightclub setting or in a church or whatever, he'd probably have 100 people. He'd actually give messages to 70 of them. So any skeptics that would say, oh, they're plants in the audience or something like that, first off, when you see the reaction of these people, you could tell they're not. And secondarily, if you had an audience of 100 and you give that kind of specific message to 70 people, it's a little bit improbable that that could actually work
Mm,
if you were fraudulent.
yeah.
Um,
I saw a medium here at home who's really big now. Her name is Maureen Hancock. And there was, oh, I don't know, 60, 70 people in the audience. And the show was supposed to go from 7 to 9. And she kept talking till about 10:30, quarter of 11. She stayed on just so she could get to everybody. I mean, it was
I'm
so obvious that she was a messenger here and she wasn't going to leave anybody left without really validation that their loved one was still around. And, you know, it was just remarkable.
I'm actually friends with Maureen, and before she knew me, I actually got to know her niece, and it was through her niece that I was able to get a reading. She gave me a free reading. Now, I don't want people to get excited because I don't know that she could do that,
Oh,
but
no,
because I had some
yep.
leverage there, I was able to get this reading, and she did not charge me, and she actually agreed to give it to me without knowing who I was, which I thought was great. And so I got set up. She called this phone number, and I had a generic voicemail reading on it too, just in case. I just said, "This is Mark." That's skeptic of me making sure. Not
Y-
skeptic of the process, but wanting to make sure that everything's on the up and up.
Yeah, that they're the real deal.
Yeah, so she called me and gave me this reading, and it was phenomenal. There were many hits in there. Among them, she brought up the name Stephen, who's my older son, and then she said, "Well, your son that died, I feel like it was up someplace high," and it was on a mountain. And she says, "Was his name Brendan?" Well, it's Brandon.
Wow. Well, close enough.
Yeah, I said that works for me. So she's phenomenal, and she's so pure of heart.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. And speaking of mediums, the last time you and I had talked, you were getting involved with starting some kind of a medium certification program.
Yeah, it's actually underway, and here's the gap that I'm trying to fill. All the time, people ask me, "Who can I go see? I need to see a medium. Who's good? Who's trustworthy?"
Right.
And I do have a list, but it's limited.
Hmm.
And there are other organizations that list. Bob Olson has a list,
Yes.
and then you've got Forever Family Foundation has a list. Windbridge Institute has a list. But here's the issue. Windbridge Institute and Forever Family have a very short list, and many of those mediums are booked solid. And some of them are expensive, too, because, they've earned that. They're at that
Yes.
level. And Bob's list I'm sure, has plenty of good people on it. But the difference is I'm testing these mediums under controlled conditions, and they have to go through 5 test readings. So I think a lot of the ones on Bob's, they're recommended by people, and they come with good recommendations, which is great. In fact, I've recommended people to him, too, that he has on his list. But I'm trying to take this up a bar in terms of putting a list of people out there that have been through a rigorous 5 test readings and passed with qualifications based on protocols that I developed in conjunction with um, Tricia J. Robertson, who's former president of the SPR in Scotland, the Scottish Society of Psychical Research, which is tied to the Society of Psychical Research in London, which is a well-respected organization going back to 1882.
Wow.
So I wrote the protocols as I thought. She helped me fine-tune them, and I'm using this. So we're actively testing now. The website's not up yet because I'm not going to launch it until I have at least half a dozen people certified. But then my intent is to continue the certification process so that we end up where we have 50, 100 qualified mediums, and they're in all parts of the country, so people will have a resource to go to that they can trust. And I can't guarantee a good reading, but I can guarantee that the people that went through it passed scrutiny. It's interesting, too, what I've found so far in grading it, is that, some of these mediums are going to pass, but they don't always have great readings. But overall, they'll pass. Because, say, out of 5, they may have, like, 2 phenomenal readings where they were just, like, off the charts, 1 that was good and 2 that weren't so good. It's the rare medium. It's Maureen Hancock's and people like that that are really strong every time. And that's a rare thing, but what I'm trying to do is give people good, solid resources they can turn to. And I'm hoping we can get that accomplished by the end of the year where we'll have that up and operating.
Yeah, and what a gift that'll be, because so many people hear of mediums and then they want to be recommended to one, and then of course who they recommended to is somebody that might be on TV that charges a couple $1,000s and it's a 3-year waiting list. But they
Right.
so to get somebody that is qualified, that's passed through the series of the different controlled tests and things, that and you're going to stamp your name on it, I mean, that's a big deal. What happens, Mark, that sometimes a medium can be real accurate and then they're not another time? Is it the medium's fault? Is it the person that's reading's fault? Is it, there's too many cocktails being consumed in the hereafter and they're not coming through clearly? Um, what is that? Because I know that I've talked to some mediums and they've been really right on, and then other times it's like, nope, 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 nope.
I, I can't give you a guaranteed accurate response. I can give you my thoughts about why I think that
Yeah,
is.
thoughts are good.
Part of it relates to several different things. First off, for whatever reason, mediums connect better with some people than others. And whether that's the energy of the sitter, um, or whether it is the ability to connect with the person on the other side and their energy, I can't say for sure. I do know that more skeptical, cynical, negative kind of folks that try and get a reading, it doesn't tend to work as well for them. Now, is that because the medium can't be at ease, or is that because there's something energetically that doesn't work right? I don't know, but one factor is the sitter and their energy. So if somebody goes in with a happy, upbeat feeling and attitude, and they're optimistic and positive, the odds are it's going to help more often than not. But I can't imagine you ever not being that way. So so even people like you can have a bad experience or a not so good reading sometimes. And I think that my dad would describe it as though it ebbs and flows. It has peaks and valleys like anything else. I almost think of it as like if it were, and I don't believe it works this way, but if it were like a radio transmission, but you were far away. Have you ever been like 2 states away and all of a sudden you pick up a station from another
Yes,
state?
right.
So there was a radio station that I could pick up from San Francisco. I could pick it up in Phoenix. It would come in strong and it would fade away, and then it would come in strong and fade away. So maybe it's something like that, that we don't completely understand. I also think that it's the way mediumship works. And I've learned this kind of on my own because I've had mediums tell me I have these abilities and I should work on developing them, and I have a little bit. Doesn't mean that I'm ready to dive into trying to do this full-time or anything, but I found that I actually do have some aptitude for this, which probably shouldn't be too surprising with the father I had.
And the uncle,
But for
yeah.
me, all I had to do was see, well, how does this work for me? And how it worked for me was really 2 things. And I would sit down with somebody who wanted to connect with somebody else. And I would close my eyes and I would try to see what I could feel or visualize for that individual. And so I would get like imagery sometimes that would be nothing more like than what you'd see if you daydreamed.
Okay.
But that when I would share what that imagery was, it would have meaning to the person. And so it was just like something I didn't want to trust or believe because I think that's just my imagination. And so, like for one particular person, I visualized like part of a bicycle, the main frame part and the gear, but no wheels or anything else. And she had said, oh, well, just before her son had passed, he was building this bicycle, and it was still in their garage, and that's all that was there. There was no wheels. It wasn't finished. I thought,
Huh.
wow, that's rather interesting. And then, I knew what her daughter looked like, and I saw like an image of her daughter's face, and I said, I see your daughter's face. So I guess that means whatever's next is for her or about her. And then I saw what looked like a purse or a pack. So I brought that up, and she said, oh, my daughter lives in Florida, and I was talking to her today. And she was all excited because she just found this new purse on the Internet. She bought it. So, for me, that was like, no, it didn't feel real solid. Like, I wanted somebody saying, tell her just about the purse, that
Right.
kind of voice coming through, but it just didn't work like that. And then later, the biggest thing of all was, and this I didn't even want to say because it seems so goofy, but I saw an image of like a paper airplane. So I said, paper plane. And so for her, that was actually the biggest affirmation of all because her son I fell in love with some song called Paper Planes by a band called MIA. I'd never heard of the band nor the song.
Oh.
And apparently he liked the song so well that when he lived in London, he had flatmates and he created a dance to that song, and then they nicknamed it Devon's Dance. And some of the friends actually were getting paper plane tattoos. So that's what it meant to her. And for me, it was just like this goofy image in my head, like, am I really going to say this? Is this just my imagination?
Oh, yeah.
But so that's kind of how, when I've had or experimented with it, how it's worked for me. And I can't say that it's always worked that well. I mean, that's kind of a really good example. And the other is just feelings. Like I'll have a feeling and I'll share that feeling. And it's just like kind of a knowing without knowing how you got the information. Almost like recalling a memory or something. It's like it just drops in. And sometimes that supplements the imagery in my mind. Like I have the image, I'm not clear about it, but I have a feeling to go with it to kind of clarify. So, and in talking to other mediums, that's a lot of them have similar type stuff. Some are clairaudient, so they hear, or they at least hear in their mind, not auditorily necessarily. So, you know, if you're getting vague images and you're getting things that you kind of hear and whatnot, that I can understand how it may be patchy, you know. It's not like it's always some perfect solid thing.
Mark,
I
just,
tried an experiment
oh,
for an
go ahead.
open-minded man who's kind of an engineer mind, more skeptical but open to this and just wanted his own experience, and I couldn't get anything. But he'd apparently been to a number of mediums, and none of them could get anything for him. So I don't know. I think that there's something energetically there different, either that or maybe he's not supposed to for some reason.
Interesting. Yeah, we don't have all the answers. I was going to ask you, do people have to talk to a medium to believe their loved one is around, or are are our loved ones around
You
without
just
the
have to
help of a...
talk to him. You just have to talk to them because you send telepathy to them, send them a message, tell them you love them telepathically. That's how they communicate with us. And if you get a feeling or a thought back, trust that it's them. It's that simple. You know, we don't want to because we're so logically minded, we're rationally minded, etched into thinking that it's something not tangibly physical, something we can touch, feel, or hear, that it's not real. But that's not the case. You know, the sixth sense is a subtle sense, and you have to block out the other stuff to pay attention to it.
And that's a
So
hard
no,
thing to do with our
you
minds
don't
being busy.
but don't need a medium. But what you can get to kind of confirm those, sometimes you'll get a sign, interesting signs. Two I'll give you recently that were kind of cool. My older son Stephen got married in France in May, and so on the train ride down from Paris to the Loire Valley, my wife and I were the only two Americans in this one boxcar. And we sat down, and when she got into her seat, which was on the window, she looked for where her feet were going to go because they have these footrests. She wanted to make sure that wasn't down because she thought she might trip over it. And so she got up to go to the restroom, and when she came back, she looked at where her feet had been. There was a shiny object. She reached down and picked it up, and it was a brand new 2014 minted U.S. penny.
Hmm.
There was nothing there before. We brought no coins with us. The only money we had was euros and only bills. So we had no coins of any kind. And there were no Americans in there either. And that coin was not there before she came back. And I've not been one to really think of coins that much, but I know a lot of people get coins as a sign. And this was delivered the day before Brandon's brother Stephen was to get married. So the next day, when the wedding was to take place, we had something even more remarkable take place. Now, not everybody's going to get something like this, but this is like over the top.
Hmm.
But this goes back to, I have to go back to January, 5 months earlier, when a medium friend named Molly was visiting from Wisconsin, and she was giving us a reading. It was basically, we put her up for free, and she said, I want to give you guys a reading for putting me up here. And
That's
so
nice.
during the reading, she said, Brandon's really excited about his brother's wedding, and he's the best man. Someone can stand in for him, but he's the real best man. And she says, I think that Stephen's going to wear a pin, like a memento, and I think it'll have a picture of Brandon on it. And he'll wear that in his pocket. It'll fit in his pocket. And remember the time, 2 p.m. on the wedding day. So fast forward to May, the next day after the train ride, about 1:30 in the afternoon, one of the groomsmen approaches me, gives me a box, a gift box, and he said, "This is from Liz, who's a friend of Stephen and Brandon's, who couldn't make the trip, and she said she wanted you. He said she wanted you to have this. This is for Stephen and you and the groomsmen." I open up the box. Inside are these pins that go in your pocket that display on the outside. They're like a memento, and each one had a framed photo of Brandon's face in it. So we wore those on the wedding day. And it was
Wow.
at 2 p.m. that my wife first saw this and was told about them.
Wow.
So those are the kind of signs you can get on the extreme, and they kind of confirm to you that, yeah, they're aware of what's going on. Yeah, they
Mhm.
care. They're still part of your life. You can't necessarily hear, see, touch, or feel them the way you used to, but there are ways to communicate, through your dreams, vivid dreams like I had. You can ask for that. Ask for them to visit you at night, and ask to remember it. Pray for that. Um, you can just sit down in a quiet place and meditate. Sometimes I actually I'll feel their energy like flow into me, and it'll bring a happy tear to my eye.
Oh, that's
I
nice.
found that sometimes I write things and then just think I'm writing creatively and later find out that something I've written is an exact mirror almost of something my dad wrote that I'd never read before. That's when I was writing the foreword to his book, Your Psychic Potential. I found some manila envelopes full of old writings, and it was some of the things that I'd written in the preface were almost identical to what he had written decades earlier.
Wow. And Mark, I want to ask you too, a lot that you found out was about life after death, but a lot of your passion is helping people live a better life now. Can you shed any light on what you think our life is for, given that we don't die and we go on and our loved ones are around? Like, what do you think the point is of living now? Because there's a lot of people who have a lot of pain and agony now and
Sure.
maybe no purpose, but what have you come to resolve
Well,
about
you're
that?
right. I mean, a lot of the work I do is for bereaved people, in particular bereaved parents, and help
Mm,
co-found an organization called Helping Parents Heal. But in addition to that, I think equally important is for people to have a purpose in life and understand they're here for a reason. There is a path to their life. Um, it's tough in the skeptical world where we're taught the religion of materialism. But if people can open their minds just a little bit and absorb the information, look at the evidence in an unbiased way, they'll be swayed. And if they have their own experiences, they'll be swayed even more. But I think it's really all about evolvement. Just like if people believe in biological evolution, well, I believe there's soul evolution, there's spiritual evolution. And that's why we come here for these brief stints of these short lives so that we can evolve in an environment that demands more of us than a spiritual environment, one that refines us. Because it is a tough world. There are things we have to endure, we have to experience that are difficult, like my son passing so I would help other people, or to go through difficulties. But to test you and see, can you do this? Can you become more compassionate and loving toward other people? And so that's why I think life is about. It's an evolvement process for us, the spiritual side of us, to go through to become more than we were before, to become more compassionate, more giving, caring, to lend support to others, and just to learn and experience, and to enjoy life too, though. That's the other side of it. I think the physical world allows us opportunities to experience things that you probably couldn't experience otherwise,
like what?
whether that's
What do you mean?
big wave surfing in Hawaii maybe, or hang
Oh,
gliding,
okay.
or a balloon ride, just to enjoy those kinds of things, or going to Europe and being on a fast train and experiencing cafes in Paris. All those, it's all about balancing your life and enjoying your life too. And for me, and I think most people, you enjoy it the most when you do it with people that you love, and you bond and have relationships with people that make life fulfilling too. So, but I kind of went off on a tangent, but
Oh, it's a
I
good
guess the, the
tangent.
short
That's an
the
excellent
short
tangent.
version is, I think that for me, life has meaning. When you know that it goes on, you know there's consequences to your behavior. I'm not talking about some sort of if you're a bad person going to hell or anything like that. I'm talking about kind of a karmic kind of thing where, I think it's important to treat people as you want to be treated and to try and do the right thing, because what goes around comes around as I see it.
Wow. Mark, I'm looking at our time and it's about time for our interview to come to an end. But I want to ask if you have any closing words, anything you'd love to just get out that might help somebody lead a better life today, or give them some hope, or maybe someone who's lost a loved one, or I don't know.
Well, my dad, I guess in a general sense, not so much about the afterlife, but he would always wrap up his demonstrations by saying, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice.
Oh,
Um,
thanks,
but I
Dad.
would just say, if you're somebody out there who has lost someone and you're suffering, I want you to know that I'm confident that life goes on. I've had direct personal evidence of this, and the evidence is out there. You can read books like Sandra's or mine. Um, if you want to see a medium, if you feel like that would help you, it may well. I'd be happy to give people references in the meantime till my site's built so that they can have those resources. And or try the things I've suggested. Try the meditation and invite them to visit you then, and see if you feel a shift. Try that when you go to bed. Ask for a visit at night. And if you're somebody who's unsure about purpose and the path in your life, or, is there really an afterlife, or you fear death, read the evidence. I think it will help you if you're real rationally minded. My new book, Messages from the Afterlife, is really crafted for you. It was written for people who want a scholarly, intellectual view of the subject matter. And Soul Shift has some of that too. It's more kind of the emotional approach, but it's all journalistic in its approach too. But that's what I would say, I guess, in closing, that I'm confident that there's more and there's a purpose and path to our lives. And just live your life to the fullest, enjoy life, treat others well, and your life will be better for it.
And be nice. You had said before we had started the show, when you and I were talking privately, that one of your books took away somebody's fear of dying. Which one was that?
Well, it was actually before the new book came out, so it was Soul Shift.
Okay,
Yeah,
which is unbelievable. I was reading that on an airplane and I was connected to the internet, which I think is cool. However we do that. I took a picture, posted it on Facebook. I'm like, I love this book. Yeah, it's really wonderful, really good. I'm
thank you for doing that. You momentarily spiked my Amazon ranking.
Oh, I love that. I'll keep doing this after this interview. All right. Well, Mark, thank you, thank you, thank you very much. And to our listener on we don't die radio.com, I'll have links to Mark's website and his books and the videos, and we'll get that song from his son. And you can also visit Mark at markirelandauthor.com. And I ask too, if you've enjoyed this episode or any of the episodes and can take a minute to go to iTunes and type in We Don't Die and leave a review or rate the show. Believe it or not, the more reviews, the more ratings, the more iTunes promotes the show. And there could be somebody that's grieving or just needs a little inspiration, and your review might really help somebody who is in need. So if you have a minute, I'd appreciate that. My name is Sandra Champlain. I've been your host on We Don't Die Radio. I do believe that life is an education for the soul and that your life here on earth is important. And I'm going to close with the words, a favorite quote of mine from Neil Donald Walsh. Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And I invite each one of us to reach outside of our comfort zones today and take one action toward a dream. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon.